All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Rafia Sufi, and I'm an Education USA advisor at the Lahore office at the United States Educational Foundation in Pakistan. I'm very, very pleased to have Rosie Edmonds, who is the Director of International Admissions, with us today. She is based in Ohio Northern University, and she'll be happy to tell you guys all about how to find the right fit. We continue as advisors to tell students, look for a university that's the best fit for you, and I think that Rosie will be able to help us out all immensely today. And right after the presentation, she'll quickly tell you a little bit about Ohio Northern as well. And if you have any questions, please do save them until the end of the presentation, and we'll go one by one and help make sure we answer all of them. So thank you so much, Rosie, and all yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Rosie Edmond. As was just mentioned, I'm at Ohio Northern University. We're based in Ada, Ohio, just south of Toledo, if anybody wants to find us on the map, and not too far from Detroit and a little further from Chicago. So just to give you an idea for those of you that want to look us up. But yeah, so thank you so much to Education USA Lahore for allowing me to chat with you guys today. I think this is such an important topic for anyone looking to study in the U.S. And why is finding the right fit important? I think oftentimes students and parents will want to just, go to the usual universities, the only universities they know. But I think we need to back up a little bit, maybe take a couple steps back and talk about what is right for you as a student, as a young adult, going to a faraway country where the culture can be significantly different from yours, where the education system is significantly different. So we're going to talk about that particular step today. And for those of you that have been working with Education USA, know that that is the first step in the 5 steps into studying in the U.S. So you can find a lot of this, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about can be referenced back to also to Education USA website. So for those of you that haven't worked with Education USA, I really recommend that you keep in touch with our hosts and visit their office or visit the website if you have access to the internet. Obviously, if you're listening to us here, you do. So, and maybe our host can, give you that website if you're not familiar with it. So a lot of what I say can be referenced there. So, and I think a lot of this, I don't know if there are any parents in the audience today, but I think this is also something for those of you that are looking at a specific school. Maybe your parents think, oh, no, I really want you to go to this other school because, the neighbor's son or daughter is at this school, or my friend told me that their son or daughter is at this other school, but maybe you've researched a few schools yourself and you think the schools that you research might be a better fit for you. So these are important conversations to have with your family members. So if they're not present here, definitely take this information back and it'll help you and your family make these very important decisions. So when you're finding the right fit, and I hope everyone can see the presentation now, but if you can't for whatever reason, don't worry. I think focus on maybe just listening, and the presentation is not too you're not really, I'm going to be saying everything that's on the presentation. So it's not too text heavy. You're not missing anything. So just in case anybody can't see it, but I hope that you can. And I think it will be available afterwards, and I believe they're recording this as well. So you're not going to miss out. So let's start with step 1, I think, very important. How do you even start looking for the right fit? What does that mean? And, before you get even started, you'll probably learn that there's over 4,000 accredited U.S. institutions available. 4,000, that's a lot. I mean, that is, many people just know those 5 schools, right? And I think some of you can already you probably can say those names. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that further down the line, but I just want you to focus on that number, 4,000 accredited. That's just the accredited, right? There's a lot of universities out there that are not accredited. So accreditation in itself is a whole other conversation that if you're not familiar with accreditation, I really recommend that, ask your Education USA advisor to explain that further, and they might have webinars or chats about that information as well. But an accreditation, just really quick, anytime you go to a website, you can type in the search, just type in accreditation, it should take you to their accrediting body. Okay, so it's easy to find whether the university is accredited or not. So how do we, among those 4,000 accredited universities, where do we start? And what are your priorities, right? What is important to you? That's a list that you should start with. What is most important to you? Maybe your parents, of course, right? Your family. What is important to all of you when you're doing your search? For many, it begins with academic. You have a specific program that you're looking for. And if you're not, and I don't want to say any of these, it's not in any specific order. I have listed academic, location, funding, type of institution, size, and institutional culture. That's just a few common priorities. There are probably others, and that might vary from country to country or region, or the type of student that you are. Priorities are special to you, right? And it might be the same priorities as your neighbor or your friend, but just your priorities are yours. This is what is important to you, which also might be a little different from your parents' priorities, right? And we can talk about that a little bit further down the line. But first and foremost, you're the one that's studying abroad. What are your priorities? Maybe you don't know what you want to study. Maybe all you know is, I want to study in the U.S. because you really believe that that's where, you want a different type of education. You're of a global mindset, or maybe you want to be of a global mindset. So you want to go to a university abroad and be in a different culture and a different education setting, right? So you don't have to know what you want to study, especially if you're looking for undergraduate studies. In America, you don't have to choose right away. You can start as your first year is undesignated, because the first 2 years you're studying general education anyway. So you might have a couple courses related to your major, but it's not mandatory. So especially if you're a liberal arts institution like Ohio Northern University, it's, we really want you to have a broad base of a background of broad courses and knowledge. So maybe, if your priority is academic, maybe you want to study engineering, or you want to study pharmacy, or maybe that you want to study international business or economics, or you name it, whatever topic. Then that's, you can start by looking at all the programs, all the institutions that have engineering, and that's a lot of institutions, right? So if that's all you're looking for, you're going to find a lot of universities. Maybe not 4,000, because not all 4,000 accredited institutions have engineering, but it's still going to be a very big number, right? So then what? Okay, you want to study engineering. What is the second most important thing to you? For some people, it might be funding. Maybe you absolutely need a full scholarship. Or maybe you only need some funding. You want a scholarship, but it doesn't have to be a full. Maybe your parents can afford it. Maybe you already have a scholarship, so that's not important, right? Maybe you have a government scholarship or a private scholarship. Whatever your financial background is, it may or may not be the most important thing, right? So that's the next thing. So now you could look for that as well. That's, again, going to narrow down your search, because now you're looking for engineering programs, and then you're going to see, okay, what schools offer scholarship for international students. And not all of them will. I think nowadays many of them do, because many universities understand how important international students are to their campus life, to the institution as a whole. You guys are very important. So funding, academics, maybe, and then what's next? Probably location. And, maybe that's not the most important thing to you. So, maybe you don't care where you go. Maybe as long as they have engineering program and they have scholarships, maybe you don't care. But what about those of you that do care, right? Maybe you don't want to go somewhere where it's really cold. Maybe you just want to be somewhere where it's warm weather all year round, like, maybe in the South or maybe California. So maybe you want to go to Hawaii. But maybe some of you want a different experience. Maybe you want to be somewhere where we have all 4 seasons. Maybe somewhere in the Midwest, like where Ohio Northern's located, or maybe in the East Coast where you also have all 4 seasons, but maybe in the Northeast where the winter is a little more harsh. Maybe you want to be around snow most of the year. That's okay. That might be a priority to you. But let's take another step back. If funding is very important to you, because maybe you don't have a lot of, financial resources, so you want to really think carefully of not just the tuition, but all the other expenses that are affiliated with the location. If you're not used to harsh weathers, and I actually am not familiar with your winter, so I'm not sure how cold it gets in Lahore, so maybe someone can answer that. But if you, not as cold as Hawaii, yeah. But, and even like upstate New York, if you go to Buffalo, the SUNY schools, very good schools up there, but it gets very, very cold, a lot of snow, very difficult to walk in, that kind of thing. I'm not used to it. I'm from California, so even Ohio is a little new to me. I had to learn how to drive in the snow this year for the first time. So, think about those things, because if you don't have the clothing for those type of severe weather, that's going to be an added expense. So if you're looking for a full scholarship and you say, okay, I've got the full scholarship, I'm going, but now you have all these added expenses, snow boots and winter gear, it really adds up. It can get very expensive. So think about those things. And then in the opposite extreme, if you want to go to Hawaii, it's pleasant, but it also, it gets really hot. It's tropical weather. So it might be maybe something you're okay with, but just realize that it is going to be very hot. So think about those things, because they may add to your expenses. And then the type of institution and the size of institution. These don't always go hand in hand. They're actually quite different. So all large universities are not the same. You can have a private large institution and a public or state school that is, quite large, and you're not going to get the same experience. So size, when I mean size of institution, it's in all aspects. So Ohio Northern University, the size-wise, it's very big, but population is very small. So we have a lot of land on our campus, a lot of buildings, but we're a small institution. So think about that when you're looking at the school. For those of you that are looking for undergraduate studies, these are 4 years of your life. These are very formative years. This is something you and your parents definitely want to consider, because if you're very shy or if you're an introvert, maybe a large institution is not where you're going to thrive. A large institution where the classes are, especially freshman classes tend to be the largest. You might be in a classroom with 150 or more students, and you might not always meet the professor. Sometimes you're going to have a teacher assistant. So if you're looking for a closer experience with your faculty members, if you really want to engage with your classmates, and that's a more comfortable setting for you, maybe because you're shy, or maybe you are outgoing, maybe you're very friendly, but you feel more comfortable in a smaller setting, that's okay. You really need to think about who you are and what you're going to be comfortable in, the type of setting for the next 4 years. I can't stress this enough. Of course, academics and funding and location, all of that is important, but these are also priorities because oftentimes students will only attend a university because of one specific priority, and then they go there and they realize the institutional, the size or even the institutional culture is not something that they're comfortable with. And 4 years can be a long time if you're not comfortable in a setting. So it's very important to think about that. You know, if you're more comfortable with a smaller setting, then what you want to look for is teacher-student ratio. And what that means is how many students per professor, right, in the class. So freshmen in, you know, at Ohio Northern, I think the largest we get for freshman classes is 19. 19 students to one professor, but on average, it's about 11 to 1. So maybe for some of you, that is not something that you want. Maybe you do want a large classroom. Maybe you have watched movies and you've seen those classrooms where it's, you know, 150 or 300 students. It's like a stadium in one classroom. Maybe that's okay for you. So be honest with yourself and think about where you are going to be most successful. And so let's talk about institutional culture for a little bit and why that's important. Maybe you think, I really want to study in Washington, D.C. You know, maybe you want to study international relations or something, you know, political science or even math or engineering or, you know, anything, but maybe you know that you want to be in Washington, D.C. because you've heard that it's very international, it's the capital of the U.S., you know, good food, whatever reasons you decided you want to live in Washington, D.C., for example. And there are quite a few universities there, very well-known universities. And I say this because I used to live in Washington, D.C. and worked at one of those very famous universities before. So, but I can tell you right now, all of those universities in Washington, D.C. have very different cultures, very different. Even though in some universities, you have professors that are teaching in all three, adjunct, right? So maybe they, you know, they're part-time professors. Adjuncts are basically part-time professors. They're usually practitioners, so they're professionals in the field during, you know, the day, but then in the evening, they're teaching at one of these universities. And so you're going to get in some areas of study, you might get one of your professors might also be teaching at a different university, and that's pretty common in some of the cities where you have several universities. However, the institutional culture can still be very different. Some schools are very liberal, some are a little more conservative, some are very athletic based, so there's a lot of you know, athletic pride. Maybe they have a good basketball team or football or, you know, whatever. And so they're known for that. Maybe they have famous professors, but you might still be in a very conservative culture. And the conservative in Pakistan might be very different from the conservative in the US. So think about those things. You know, a liberal institution might not necessarily be what you think. You know, maybe one of the other universities might be more international than the university 10 minutes down the street. So that's why it's important to really, once you define your priorities, to then start researching, you know, think about all these, and these are just 6 priorities that I listed, but maybe there are other important things that are important to you that maybe I haven't mentioned. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever's going to be right for you. So right for you, and maybe your parents. Maybe your parents are looking, you know, they're concerned about safety. That's a very common, regardless, that was very common 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. That's always been an issue, regardless of what's going on in the world. Any parent who's going to send their son or daughter across the ocean to a different country is always going to be worried about safety. So it has nothing to do with, you know, what is going on today in the world necessarily. It's just a parent concern, I think. And so they might be more comfortable with you going to a rural area, you know, or, you know, college town. But, you know, I think you could be just as safe in a big city as well. You know, NYU is in the middle of, you know, it's in the city. American University in Washington, D.C. is in the city, you know. But on campus, it has more of a different feel. You don't feel like you're in the city. Whereas maybe George Washington University in DC, it's more of an urban feel. So it varies. It doesn't mean one is more safe than the other. It's just, again, educating yourself and researching, and what you're going to be comfortable with and maybe what your parents are comfortable with, and come to a common understanding of what's going to work, for you and for your academic career. So those are, just a couple. I kind of spend a lot of time on defining your priorities because it's really the first step, and you really should think carefully and long and really be honest with yourself about what your priorities are. And so why is that important? I kind of alluded to it a little bit on why it's important. It's going to be the next 4 years or 2 years of your life. And for those of you that are going to, looking to undergraduate opportunities, this is, this is your first step into adulthood. Your academic career it won't define the rest of your life, but it's a very important part. It will be a very important part into your professional career. So this is where you really start to work. This is where you show your work ethic. And this is where you learn a lot of those skills that you're going to take into the professional world. So you want to be in an environment that is comfortable for you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, and this is really all over. I've been to almost every continent now. Last month I went for the first time to Africa, and the parents that I spoke to was very similar to what the parents in Asia and Europe and Latin America and the Middle East. Oftentimes their friend's kid went to Harvard or went to Yale or, all of these names that we all know, and they want their son or daughter to go there. And that's great. Everybody wants to have, meet the highest standards, and this is what most people know. However, Harvard is not for everybody. And it's a good school and it's ranked highly, but it's not the best. And it's not the best for everybody because it's a very, the reason I say this is because it's a very competitive institution, which is good. It really pushes people to do their best. But again, for those of you that, you could be just as smart, if not smarter than some of those students. But if you're not comfortable in that type of environment, in a very competitive, maybe aggressive perhaps in some cases, especially in business, maybe that's not where it's going to be easier for you to thrive and to be successful. Maybe you need a smaller setting or a different setting. So really think about that. You might be more successful in a state school elsewhere or a liberal arts school somewhere else. So it just going back to where you defined your priorities, that's where you're going to realize, oh, okay, this is what's important to me. So these are the schools that will populate. Once you go and talk to the Education USA advisor, or you go through the 5-step process online on your own, and you look through, the different steps, and once you narrow your choices and you enter those parameters, you're going to see much less amount of universities that will populate. Remember, we talked about 4,000. Once you narrow your parameters and you type in all the search option in the search engine, the type of school that you're looking for, you're going to get much less to choose from. So that's going to narrow your choices and it'll make it much easier to choose. So once you start looking, let's say you narrow it down to 20 schools. Some students do more. I met, I'll give you an example. We had orange and black are the colors for Ohio Northern University, and Saturday we had Orange and Black Day. So it was all the admitted students and their parents that came to campus. And one student from Florida, they applied to 48 different schools. And of course now this kid is confused. So how do you choose from 48 different schools? They applied. First of all, it's very expensive to apply to that many schools. And so they were looking for, scholarship. And, had they not applied to that many schools, they probably could have saved money. So, think about narrowing it down. I think 20 schools is reasonable. You don't have to apply to all 20 schools, but narrow it down to about 20 that you could really research. And, when I say research, look into their faculty. Look, who's teaching the courses that you want to take. what are the options available for you to thrive in? Are there leadership positions for you to participate in? Is this where you're going to shine as a leader? Is this where you're going to have the opportunities? If you're studying engineering, is this where you're going to have the opportunity to create and be the next inventor of, the next robot that builds who knows what, et cetera? So is this where you're going to be your most successful? And so once you find the institution that offers what you're looking for, the scholarship, everything else, and you get to know the culture, you start communicating with the admissions staff, you maybe talk to current students, maybe even alumni, and frankly, you could even ask if you meet some of the current students, I would even encourage you to ask if your parents can chat with their parents, so that they can address any concerns that maybe your parents have. So really dig deep. It's a lot of work, but it's really important. Again, you're spending 4 years or 2 years of your life, right? So this is where you're going to be making the first decisions, narrowing down your choices. So if you are lucky enough to get into Harvard, great, fantastic. I hope you do well, and I hope that it is the match for you. But I've met people in the past that said, I went to Harvard and it wasn't for me. It was miserable. And so there have been people that have transferred. It's not, you wouldn't be the first. Okay, so, sorry, I don't know if I'm skipping. Okay, where to begin? So you're saying, Rosie, you gave me all these options, all these instructions. It's so daunting. It sounds like a lot of work. But from here on out in your life, everything that is worth doing, any step that you make that you think is going to benefit your future, your family's future, your children's future, is going to require a lot of work, but it's worth it. And so where to begin? Education USA. I think many U.S. universities, not just Ohio Northern University, but many across the United States, we really enjoy working with Education USA, and we've noticed that students that work with the advisors and get all of their information and their guidance and the tools to do things themselves, but they get them from Education USA, we really value that knowledge that Education USA gives the students and their parents. And in my experience, students that go through that process and really learn how to do things on their own are better equipped to articulate why they want to study in the U.S. when they go to get their visa. So oftentimes I meet parents that say, well, I just want to hire an agent, and they can do all this for us. And I can't tell you how many students I've met on my campus and other universities where I've worked, where they did not get all of their information from their agent. They probably pay too much for information they could have gotten for free. And, they might still be paying the agent as well as tuition. So you really don't need to pay anybody. You might want to pay for tutoring, for SAT, or, TOEFL for those who need it, things like that. But, even SAT now, many universities, it's optional. Ohio Northern University is optional as well. So there are a lot of schools out there, especially if you're looking for funding. If you start looking at how much it's going to cost to go to the U.S., the tests are going to be an added expense, right? So SAT, ACT, maybe if you're going to master's, GRE or the GMAT. And they might waive it. It might be more difficult to waive it for the master's level, but at the undergraduate level, many universities are now making it optional for international students when they apply. Oh, good. Someone just said that they got into Mount Holyoke with an SAT. Exactly, because I think universities are realizing that for international students, it's such a completely different type of test that they're not used to. As Americans, we're used to taking this type of test since we're in first grade. These type of standardized tests are just the same format as SAT and ACT, so we're used to it. I took the SAT when I was in high school. I probably wouldn't be able to pass it now, but you know, it's just something that we're used to. So we've understood, I think now, many universities, that it's not really a fair way to assess an international student. We can assess your qualifications in so many different holistic ways. So educationusa.gov, excuse me, and of course the admissions office should be able to answer any questions that you have. And I really want to focus sometime on the admissions offices. I already know that you're going to get quality information when you go to an Education USA center, but here's another way to gauge on the type of university culture. It's the response time and the way the university admissions officers respond to you, if they're courteous, if they're responding in a timely manner. That is very important. You know, there is no such thing as a stupid question, so you should be able to ask any question that you know, that you have. However, you know, you have to also, I do want to say that you are applying for an institution, and some universities might start reviewing you through that process. You know, if you're asking questions that probably could have been found on the website, you know, you want to be smart about it as well, because you want to make a good impression. Just like the admissions officer should be making a good impression on you, I think it goes both ways. So, you know, if you've looked on the website and you can't find it, you know, tell them, because maybe you just didn't see it. Maybe their website is not that great to navigate. And I've seen this before. Sometimes the university will say, well, it's on our website. Yeah, but your website is so difficult. So, you know, just email them, you know, in a courteous way and say, look, I tried to look for it, but I can't find X, Y, and Z. Can you help me? And I think any university admissions officer is going to be more than happy to help you. They will either send you the link or give you that information directly. Oftentimes I've seen students that get upset. They're like, don't send me the link. I don't want to look through it. And I'll be honest, that just seems kind of a lazy answer, because you know, we're showing you exactly where you could find it. And there could be reasons for that. Maybe they have tried the link and it's not working, but you know, just be very specific about that. Communicate. I think the most important thing is to communicate. And now, if you're really not getting a positive answer from the admissions office, then that's a sign that might not be a culture, you know, that is where you're going to be comfortable in it. So, you know, those are things to think about as you get to know the school. And of course, alumni, if you know of people that have studied at the university that you're researching, ask them questions, because, you know, they've already spent time there. They're going to tell you the good and the bad. You know, oftentimes alumni, they're very proud of where they studied, but, you know, I don't want to say they don't care whether you go or not. They probably want other people to go to their university, but they don't have such a bias in the way that admissions offices have, right? An admissions office wants you to come, but an alumni will be very honest and very candid with the things they like and they don't like. Even current students. The first thing I did when I joined Ohio Northern University is I met with different groups of students from different countries and different regions, and I said, what do you like? And of course they were all very happy to tell me what they liked. And I said, well, what do you not like? What is something that we can change that would be better for you? Some of them were a little hesitant because they thought I only wanted to hear the good news, but I said, look, this is how we can improve things, and if I don't know what's wrong, I can't help you correct it. So then a lot of them were very candid on the things that they wanted changed, and so now we're working on some of those things. Not everything can be changed, because some of the things were very much at a higher level that even domestic students can have, where it's just maybe the location or things like that. But a lot of the suggestions that they gave, we're already working on them, and you know, there's merit to every concern. So ask to speak to alumni and current students. And it's a good way, if you already know you're going to go to that university, or if you've already been admitted, a current student is a great way to network, because now you already have a friend on campus, not just the admissions officers, but now you have friends that you can meet as soon as you get on campus. And you know, and it doesn't just have to be current Pakistani students. It can be students from other countries. You know, if you speak a different language, ask to, you know, if you speak Japanese or Spanish or, you know, French or another language, ask to speak to another student. That's a great way to meet new students and develop your network from the beginning. Okay, so I think we only have an hour, so I was very brief, but I wanted to focus on the very basics of defining your priorities and how to search and where to begin. So I'm very happy to take questions. You can ask, yes, if you can switch to the PDF, I can maybe spend like 5 minutes talking about Ohio Northern University and kind of give you the highlights. This is available, I think, for you guys to download. Excuse me. And this is just a fact book. It just kind of gives you our background, tuition. I'll skip to the important parts. Okay, gives you the accreditation. So we're accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. Remember, I talked about that earlier. But then each college has its own accreditation. So this is a very important part. When you're looking for universities, let's say some of you are looking to study LLM. I think LLM is very popular in Pakistan, right? You want to make sure the university is accredited, but also the law school. And the law school should be accredited by the American Bar Association. And we have a law school at Ohio Northern, which is accredited by the American Bar Association here. So if it's not accredited, if the law school is not accredited, but the university is, and you want to study law, that's a problem. Why? Because then your university is not going to be recognized, not just in the US, but worldwide. So if you're studying something very specific, you want to make sure to look at both accreditations, okay? So these are all the different accreditations that are colleges. Like I said, we have the engineering programs, they're accredited by all the different bodies. So all of the different accreditations depend on the different programs. We have pharmacy, which is one of our most, our university was established in 1871, so we've been around for quite a long time. We're ranked 4th in the best colleges in Ohio, but we're ranked number 2 among the Midwest in regional colleges. So that's undergraduate colleges in the Midwest, number 2, because our business school is also so very, been distinguished. Our pharmacy program, like I said, has been around since when we first established the university. And our pharmacy program is a direct admit, which means it's 6 years and you're admitted directly into the pharmacy program from year 1. Many universities that offer pharmacy programs are not direct admit. What that means is you might be admitted to the university and you do first 2 years and then you have to get admitted to the pharmacy, and you might not. So if you're at the university and 2 years later you're not admitted into the pharmacy program, guess what? You have to look for a different major or transfer. So at Ohio Northern University, it's a direct admit. We also have a very well-known theater department, international theater production. We have costume design, a lot of things like that. Our nursing program is very popular as well, and our engineering, we're very highly well-known in, we have a very good robotics program, and so a lot of our programs in engineering are very well-known. We have a very popular entrepreneurship program that is with pharmacy, with engineering, and of course business. So we're a liberal arts institution, but very focused on entrepreneurship. So we're really encouraging, regardless of what you study, to be leaders and entrepreneurs in that field for those that are interested in that. So I'll just breeze through some of this. I skipped the ACT and the SAT section because, like I said, we're optional. Like I said, we're a huge campus, but we're very small in size. Less than 3,300 students. So your classes are going to be small. You're probably going to get to know all of your classmates. International students also quite small because of our size. We have about 200 international students from 26 different countries. So, you can, we've uploaded this, and this is, available to you. If you can't access it, you can certainly email me, and I can send you more information. Scholarships. I think that's a really important one. Every international student that comes to Ohio Northern University gets a scholarship. Unfortunately, we do not offer full scholarships, but our maximum scholarship is $16,000. So that is merit-based. What does that mean? It's based on your grades. If you do take the SAT, we do give you extra money for that. If you have a talent, if you play an instrument, if you perform, you can send us a video and then we'll consider it and you get more scholarship money. So we look at all of your, achievements and determine the scholarship in that way. So that's just the very quick overview of Ohio Northern University. Like I said, we're in a very beautiful rural area of Ohio, very safe, very friendly environment. And our international students really thrive and are involved in so many different activities. Tomorrow we have a multicultural day, so a lot of the students will get to have different tables and booths and share their culture and exchange, and it's such a great way to show the pride in your culture and learn about others. So a very active campus. But I want to make sure that we have time for questions just in general and also about Ohio Northern University. So I'm here, for the next 20 minutes and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And I see one already. Do you give, oh, yeah. Do you give scholarships?
I was going to say thank you, Rosie.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here.
All right, we can start taking questions now, guys. Go ahead and type them into the chat box.
So do you give scholarship to transfer students? Yes, absolutely. For those of you that when you're defining your priorities and if funding is an issue, I really highly encourage you to consider community colleges. We also talk to many of the community colleges, not just in Ohio, but out of state. And they often are trying to place their students into, institutions that would be a good fit for their students. And so, yes, we do give scholarships to transfer students, absolutely. So whether you're transferring from a 4-year university in the US or a community college, we will absolutely consider you for scholarship.
Any more questions, guys? Anything about finding the right fit or anything about Ohio Northern specifically? Go ahead and type them.
Do we provide counseling in general? Do you mean the university? Most universities do. So at Ohio Northern University, once you select a major, well, when you start, if you're undecided, and that's okay. There are many students, both international and domestic, that are undecided. They really don't know what they want to study, and they kind of figure it out usually within the first year when they take so many different courses and start to talk to students and think about what they want to do. And so you are assigned an advisor, so you can get counseling from them. But I see that you're asking about Education USA.
Right. Wanya, I was going to say that if you do, or if any of you in the participant list, if any of you do have questions about how to get started, for instance, do reach out to your assigned educational advisor. And if you don't know who your advisor is, just email the advisors in your city, or just go ahead and send us an email and I'm just going to be writing this down here so that you have a copy. Go ahead and send us an email and we'll be happy to facilitate you in any way we can. Any other questions, guys? What if you are do get assigned to the US? Rosie, do you want to answer this? Maybe an academic advisor?
Yeah, so I don't know if that question, Wanya, is for Education USA or for me, but if you're in the US, both. Okay, for a university, if you're already in a university, yes, you should have an advisor or a counselor. It depends on the university what they call it. At Ohio Northern University, we call them advisors, and they're usually faculty advisors. So for example, if you're studying engineering and you're going to study mechanical engineering, there's an advisor for mechanical engineering students, which is very different from the advisor for civil engineering. So it's very specific to your major so that you're getting the guidance that you need and the mentorship that you need for the rest of your academic career at the university.
Thank you. And if the rest of you have any questions, go ahead and type them up. Otherwise, we will wrap this up. Rosie, just in case there are no other questions, you're welcome, Abdulkader. Thank you so much for showing up today, for helping us out today. This was extremely informative, not only just for the students, but also for me. And I've been advisor here now for almost 4 years. So thank you so much for joining.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you for all that you do at Education USA. You know, I know that I speak for many universities that worked with you guys. We absolutely love you and the way you treat your students, and your students are always so well prepared when they come to our campus. So we definitely love working with you. And what I would say, my last word of advice for students, if there are universities that I know not too many might maybe go to Lahore, but if they do, please make the effort and go meet them. Even if you're not interested in their university, ask them questions in general. They're such a great resource. And if they're there, they're going to be happy to answer your questions. So take advantage of that.
Yes, actually, we had about 24 universities come to Lahore this time. Just a very big number.
Oh,
I hope
fantastic.
to see you in Lahore someday, Rosie.
Yes, I would love to. I would definitely love to, because I've met so many of you guys over the years. And, you know, unfortunately, we're one of those universities with limited budgets, but absolutely, as soon as I get the opportunity, I cannot wait to visit your center and meet all the wonderful students that want to study in the U.S. So thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And for the rest of you, if you do want a copy of the webinar, it will be available on our YouTube page tomorrow. A copy of the webinar will be available on youtube.com/edusa Pakistan. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.